Welcome to Grand Prix, your go-to channel for the fastest updates in Formula One. We've got 3 hot stories for you, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay ahead of the pack. Let's get started. This past week, several reports suggested that Red Bull is preparing to introduce a major upgrade package for their car, an update that, according to internal sources, could potentially put them ahead of McLaren in terms of performance. That is certainly an ambitious claim, considering the current state of the grid where McLaren has been consistently outperforming the Red Bull cars. However, one important factor that often goes unmentioned by those focusing on Red Bull's improvements is that McLaren itself is far from standing still. The British team has its own well-structured development plan in place and is set to introduce a series of upgrades over the next few races. In fact, some of these key updates are scheduled to debut as early as the next round at the Miami Grand Prix. What makes McLaren's approach particularly solid is the fact that they have already started evaluating these upgrades under real track conditions. During the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix weekend, McLaren used the first free practice session to test several of the components that are expected to be part of their Miami upgrade package. This strategic move allowed the team to collect valuable data and validate whether these new parts are performing as expected before fully committing to their implementation in race conditions. Among the changes tested in Saudi Arabia was a newly redesigned diffuser with significant modifications, particularly in its central section. Additionally, the team experimented with various updates to the floor side edges and introduced new aero elements distributed across different parts of the car. These changes are specifically aimed at optimizing airflow management and increasing aerodynamic efficiency, a critical factor for maintaining the strong pace McLaren has shown so far this season. What's even more impressive is how methodical the testing process was. McLaren fielded 2 different car specifications during the session. Lando Norris drove the standard version of the current car, the one that was used in the race itself, while Oscar Piastri spent the entire session running the car equipped with the new upgrades. This allowed McLaren's engineers to gather direct comparative data under similar conditions, giving them a clearer picture of the real-world benefits these updates might bring. One of the areas McLaren is particularly focused on improving is top speed performance, especially when the car is in traffic. Although the current car has demonstrated excellent pace when running in clean air, it still shows some limitations when it comes to overtaking or defending positions against competitors with higher peak speeds. The upcoming upgrades aim to address these weaknesses by fine-tuning the car's aerodynamic balance and enhancing its straight-line efficiency without compromising cornering performance. By refining these details, McLaren is positioning itself not only to maintain its lead in the current standings, but also to minimize risks in both the Constructors' and Drivers' Championship fights. With the season still long and other teams like Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes also preparing their own update packages, staying ahead of the development race will be crucial. All eyes will now be on the Miami Grand Prix, where McLaren is expected to officially introduce these upgrades during race conditions. The question remains, will these enhancements be enough to keep the team at the top of the performance chart, or will their rivals manage to close the gap and mount a challenge? What do you think? Has McLaren proven to be the most prepared and efficient team in terms of car development so far this season? Or do you believe that one of the other teams will find the breakthrough needed to catch up and shake up the championship battle? Share your thoughts with us in the comments, and stay tuned for the latest updates as the development race heats up in Formula One. There is no race scheduled for this week, which means that teams across the paddock are using this downtime to analyze data, solve issues, and try to improve their cars for the upcoming rounds of the championship. One of the teams that seems particularly concerned about its current situation is Aston Martin, which has been struggling to score points consistently in the last few races. So, let me ask you, are you disappointed with Aston Martin's performance so far this season, or did you already expect a challenging year for the team? While you think about that, don't forget to leave a like on this video to support our work. Here, we keep you updated daily with the latest and most reliable news from the world of Formula One. Right now, Aston Martin sits in 7th place in the Constructors' Championship. However, both Alpine and the Racing Bulls have been closing the gap in recent races, and this has certainly triggered some alarm bells within the team. Dropping further down the standings would not only mean less prize money at the end of the season, but could also damage the team's image with its sponsors, adding even more pressure to the current situation. In an attempt to avoid that scenario, Aston Martin has reportedly scheduled an emergency meeting for this Monday. The focus of the meeting will be a detailed review of data collected from the last 3 races. The engineering team hopes to identify where improvements can still be made and how they can maximize the potential of the current car, even if fighting for wins and podiums seems out of reach for now. The realistic target is at least to move up a few positions in the standings. An important point here involves Adrian Newey, who joined Aston Martin this season with great expectations surrounding his contribution. However, the team has made it clear that Newey will not be spending his time trying to fix this year's car. Instead, he is fully focused on the development of the 2026 project, the year when the new technical regulations will come into play. This leaves the responsibility of improving the current car entirely in the hands of the engineering staff that designed it last season, a tough challenge given the limited time and budget available for this year's development. The situation raises a difficult question for the team. How much effort should they continue to put into trying to improve the 2025 car? If the performance doesn't show significant signs of progress soon, it is quite likely that Aston Martin will decide to abandon further development of this current project and fully redirect their resources toward preparing for 2026. With Adrian Newey at the helm of that project, Aston Martin is already being considered one of the potential frontrunners for the new era of Formula One, a factor that makes focusing on the long term even more appealing. For now, a lot remains uncertain for Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and the entire Aston Martin team. Whether they will manage to turn things around this season or shift all their energy toward the future is something we will discover in the coming weeks. But what about you? Do you still believe Aston Martin has a chance to improve this year? Or do you think the smartest move would be to give up on 2025 and focus entirely on building a competitive car for 2026? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned for more updates right here. Big news kicked off the day regarding Max Verstappen's future with Red Bull, or possibly outside of it. If you want to stay on top of all the latest developments in Formula One, make sure to subscribe to the channel, where we bring you daily updates with reliable, straightforward coverage. And if you enjoy these quick and informative videos, don't forget to leave your like to support our work. Over the past few days, speculation has intensified about Verstappen's potential departure from Red Bull, with several reports suggesting that the team is already considering possible replacements for him as early as next season. The main reason behind this potential exit seems to be the underwhelming performance of Red Bull's current car and the evident struggles in resolving its ongoing issues. Sources close to the situation claim that Verstappen has been losing confidence in the team's engineering staff and their ability to deliver a competitive car, something that could ultimately push him to look elsewhere for better prospects. One of the teams reportedly on Verstappen's radar is Aston Martin, especially now that they have secured the services of Adrian Newey as the lead engineer for their future projects. Newey's reputation as one of the most brilliant minds in car design has certainly made Aston Martin an appealing destination for any top-tier driver who's thinking about a new challenge. However, as most Formula One fans know, Verstappen is under contract with Red Bull until the end of the 2028 season. Leaving before the contract expires would typically require the driver to pay a significant exit penalty, unless a specific release clause is triggered. Contracts in Formula One often include such clauses to protect both the teams and the drivers, allowing for certain scenarios where early termination can occur without financial penalties. But what exactly is this clause in Verstappen's contract that could allow him to walk away from Red Bull without having to pay the heavy price of breaking his deal? According to information published by the race, Verstappen's contract reportedly includes a performance-based release clause. It states that if Verstappen is not ranked within the top 2 positions in the Drivers' Championship by the summer break, effectively the midpoint of the season, he would be allowed to leave the team if he chooses to do so, without owing any penalty. As of today, Verstappen currently holds 3rd place in the standings, just 2 points behind 2nd-placed Lando Norris and 12 points adrift of current leader Oscar Piastri. If the summer break were to begin right now, Verstappen would technically be in a position to trigger this clause and part ways with Red Bull. Of course, there's still a long road ahead before the season reaches its halfway point, and the standings can change dramatically over the next few races. But with the championship being so tightly contested this year, and several drivers battling at the front, staying in the top 2 won't be an easy task, even for a driver of Verstappen's caliber. This situation leaves the door wide open for a possible change in the competitive landscape of Formula One. Should Verstappen choose to activate this clause and leave Red Bull, it would not only shake up the driver market, but could also create a domino effect across multiple teams, forcing other drivers and teams to reconsider their plans for the upcoming seasons. At the same time, it raises the question of whether any alternative team could truly offer Verstappen a better chance of continuing his success. Red Bull, despite its current struggles, still represents one of the strongest operations on the grid, with a proven track record of championship-winning performance. Walking away from that is no small decision, and certainly not one to be made lightly. So what do you think? Should Verstappen seriously consider leaving Red Bull and starting fresh with a new team? Or would staying put, trusting in Red Bull's ability to turn things around, be the wiser move for his career?